Hey everyone, this is Edward from Sword and Fortress, aka Edouis, and today we're going to be going over character and house creation in the Dune RPG. We hope to be doing some of these sessions here within the next couple weeks, and hope you guys will enjoy it. So, Dune RPG, Adventures into the Imperium, is a D20 based system where all you use is D20s. And the character and house creation can be a little weird if you're used to things like D&D and other stuff, to where you have a lot of rules that go into how your character's created. You got to follow certain steps and stuff like that. There are steps in this to character creation, but there's also a lot of ambiguity and openness, but that's also because of how the game is played. Instead of it being a, can I lift that thing up off the ground? Well, roll a strength check, and then you roll the things. It's a lot more like, I'm going to try and convince this person to follow what I want them to do. And to help why I'm doing that, I'm going to have my duty. I need to fight for my house and justifications. And then those will change your difficulty. Then you'll do your dice rolls. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a really fun system. As I've been reading the book, it's going to be great. But if you've never really created a character like that in this kind of system, it's very kind of off-putting. You're used to D&D. Okay, I want to be a wizard. Okay, I get this many spells. I get this, and there's just tables for you to follow. Whereas a lot of this is true kind of, what is this character? Why does this character do what they want to do? So we're going to go over how to build a house. Then we're going to build two different characters, one using the archetypes and the starter kind of setups, like the Bene Gesserit, the Mentats, the Fremens. The other one we're just going to build as a normal human who doesn't have any of that cool training or anything else like that. So to start off with the houses, you get to decide as your group what kind of house you develop. You've got a nascent house. This means you're just coming into your own. You're not even a house minor in the system. You're just a budding kind of family that's starting up. Then you've got a house minor that's slightly developed. They fall under a house major. Them and a couple other house minors will support that house major. And then you've got your house major, which is the big weight in the galaxy next to the great houses. And then if you've read Frank Herbert's or you've watched the new movie, the great houses are like the Atreides, the Harkonnens, the Emperor. His house is a great house. These are the ones that truly move the galaxy and move the table. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Pop open your favorite carbonated water. I wish we could get some kind of deal with those guys. That would be great. Okay, so for this situation, in this example, we're going to go ahead and start off with a house minor. So right here, we've got the house record sheet. We've got our banner, which you and your group can go ahead and put together. And so we're going to go ahead and start as a house minor. Our house has been around for a little while. And you know what? Let's go ahead and put together Dune house name generator. Why not? Noble house names. Grimoire. I like that. So we are House Grimoire. Let me go ahead and switch over to where we can set this up. So we are House Grimoire. Now our home world, we're going to get into a little bit later. Then we go into, once we've selected what type of house type, we are going to have, as a house minor, one threat per player. So threat comes in as stuff that your game master gets to do to the players to enhance the difficulty, to shake the story up and stuff like that. So if you're playing with a big group, you could get some pretty high threat. We'll go ahead and say for the moment we've got 3 threat for 3 players. Let's see. Now our domain. This talks a little bit as towards what is your house known for. For this kind of test built house, we're going to select political. Our big thing is we're known for our political stuff. You have some choices like artistic, espionage, farming, Conley, which is the vengeance in the Dune universe, military, political, religion, science. But for this one, we're going to go ahead and say that our house is most known for our political, and specifically, you get to choose within all of these areas machinery, produce, expertise, workers, or understanding. Meaning, do you build stuff? Do you produce things like for political information, secrets, favors? So, what do you bring to the table in that area? Expertise, you guys are like the experts at this political stuff. You know all the maneuvering, you know all the drama. Workers, your house is known for producing the best spies, or the best courtiers, or administrators. And then understanding, again, that kind of blurs into expertise for this one. But diplomacy techniques, forms of etiquette. Maybe your house is really known for training other lords and ladies how to handle dinner, what fork goes where. For this one, we're going to go ahead and say that we are our primary. As a minor house, we have one primary, one secondary. So our primary is political, and we are going to do the machinery, and we're going to say we make the best diplomatic recording devices around. That's our thing. If you want a secure message delivery system, that's what our house makes. Makes the anti-tampering, all that other stuff. For our secondary, so the primary is what do you do? Secondary is maybe something that kind of you've picked up along the way, something that kind of sets and helps define you. So for this case, we're going to go ahead and say that our secondary, let me see if a secondary domain is an area in a house is known for, but is not their main source of income. So yeah, kind of what is your secondary thing? Our secondary is, we're going to go with espionage, and we're going to say machinery as well. And we make some of the best jamming devices for having discussions. Things that, when you're walking around, you've got a bracelet and you can tap and say, a field comes out, and that jams your conversation with somebody else. That's the kind of things we make. As we were making, our political messenger devices, we found we also, in those anti-tamperings, we also found a good jamming technique. So there is our primary and secondary of what our house is known for. Again, you've got tons of things you can get into. The great thing about this game is just how open it is. So now we're going to go ahead and go back to our homeworld. And your homeworld, depending on your house size, could be a continent or some islands, all the way up to, half the planet, maybe a whole planet. I mean, if you're a major house or, a grand house, you could hold a couple different planets, and realistically, your house miners take care of those planets for you. Since we're a house miner and we're kind of in the communication and espionage business, we're going to go ahead and say that we actually are based on, an asteroid moon that was moved into position above our house. So kind of think, depending on the level of secrecy you want to do with this, I was kind of thinking like the Force moons or something like that. A habitable moon that's just been moved kind of into place as towards like size. The astrophysicist in me is screaming that an object that size doesn't have enough gravity to hold atmosphere. But you know what? We'll make it work however we need to. It's domed cities, whatever. In this place, in this part, you're just kind of fleshing things out. We are a house. miner. Wow, I really cannot type today. So our banner and arms, like I've kind of pulled a prototype for our Sword and Fortress logo that we're going to be moving into for our pins and stickers. Some of the other things, if you really want to get deep into it, you know, how are the people underneath you? How do the populace feel about you? How the workers feel about you? You kind of do want to get into that detail as you develop the story because of how everything interconnects in this type of game. We've got our banners. For our motto, because we're into politics and espionage, we're going to have something about how words aren't necessarily stronger than the sword or stuff like that. That's kind of overplayed. But how about words move the world? There's our motto. All right. House traits. How that's figured out is you have a trait for every primary domain. So our first trait is political. And I'll fix the spelling down here now that I noticed the issue. And so traits, honestly, it took me a while to wrap my head around how traits work inside this game. Because traits are how your game master is going to kind of set things up, and that's how you interact with the scenario they interrupt. What are your traits? What are your skills? What are your drives? So you can actually use one momentum to apply your trait, your house trait, to what you're doing to try and ease that difficulty. And as we play and get into videos, we'll talk about momentum and threat more. But our first trait is our political. And then we have a secondary trait that's kind of describing the house. What is it described as? When other people talk about your house, what do they say? And for this one, because we're into the communications business and also the espionage, we're going to say proficient. You know, we're good at what we do. All right, so now that we've got kind of house traits picked out, you kind of start getting into the roles. Now, when you're building a group, the players that you want to play with are not ones that... Here, let me close some windows. Maybe that'll help with the webcam issue. You don't want to be part of these roles. As a player inside the Dune universe, you're not going to be the Duke Leto of your house running around running errands. This is more a game more for the people that are up and coming into the house, the second, third hands. They're out running around while the big guys deal with the big plans. So you'll fill in these house roles, as many as you want, as little as you want, with the group, and kind of give people names and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and say Lord and Lady Grimoire are our rulers. And because they're married, and our Lady Grimoire doesn't stand for any hanky-panky, we don't have a consort. Because this is a house minor, they haven't really gotten a chance to have an heir. And each of these roles do have a big impact as your group is doing this. Read through what all of these do, their rights and responsibilities. You don't want to just sit there and go, okay, we've got a leader, we got a spy master, and we got a war master. You'll really want to give some thought as towards why doesn't your house have a consort? Why don't they have an heir? An advisor is someone that helps take care of things, the field of knowledge. Maybe our Lord went off and went to be a lawyer with the politics thing, and our advisor would be somebody who handles production and knows how that works, while our Lord was a lawyer. So we're going to go ahead and say that Luke Grimoire is our advisor, and he is the Lord's brother. Our chief physician, our house is big enough, as a house minor, we would have somebody dedicated and trusted to take care of the family. So we'll put Dr. Let's see. Let's pull up epic name generators. Futuristic name generators. Alright, we'll steal a little bit from some of the other sci-fi. So, Dr. Ender Assel. Our counselor, we don't have one quite yet. Counselor would be the connection to the people. We're still small enough that the people that work on our forest moon, they know Lord and Lady Grimoire. They don't need somebody who is connected in there. Our envoy, we're going to go ahead and leave that blank because no, we won't. I was thinking about creating an envoy for us, but instead I think we'll make him assistant. Like I said, you really don't want anybody as part of this. So let's put it as Victor Lasse is our envoy. He is the one that's responsible when the Lord wants something, not said to another house, to go out, messenger, also receiving, stuff like that. A marshal, we really don't have one. Our house isn't kind of focused on the military stuff. Our scholar, we don't have an heir yet. We don't have, a lot of academia involved. All of our stuff is kind of house grown. We do definitely have a spice master with how we're known for our stuff. And his name is Aldon. Let's see, what's another name? Aldon Drax. I like that. Our sword master, we don't have one. Again, we're not a very militaristic house. We have... Oh, wow, I said Light Grimoire. Still Luke. Janice Grimoire, who is the Lord's brother, or Lord's sister. This is what you get for recording late at night, kids. And while he went off to be a lawyer, she went into the accounting. But we do have a war master. As we've become big enough, we do have a house guard. We do have people protecting us. And in the spirit of my constant obsession with this name, thanks to Blade, we're going to have Victor Van Vanderthrust as our War Master. So now that we've kind of filled out our house roles, we are going to go into our enemies. As a minor house, we already have one enemy. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pull out a great and powerful D20 somewhere around here. I know I have one. I'm going to have to get up to get one. That's awesome. Okay, here we go. So first, let's figure out a name. So they are house... let's go to the name generator. House Tantum. They are also a minor house. Now, their level of hatred. This is the first time in creating this whole house, you're going to roll the dice. So, roll a d20. Their hatred is a 1. They just don't dislike. They just don't like us. I mean, there's not major hate. They're not actively plotting against us. They get a chance to prod our house or make our house look bad, they'll jump on it. But other than that, there's not much. And when we deal with them, they're just at a +1 difficulty. So why? Let's take a look at a reason. I really should be recording this stuff to where you guys can see this dice roll, because we rolled just another 1 because, well, Yeah. You know what? No, we're not going to accept the one. 6. So, debt. They or the player character's house has reneged on a deal. This might be through misunderstanding, an unfortunate circumstance, or just because they could. For whatever reason, we had an agreement with this house, and we fell through on it. And then you could put in some notes, some more family stuff. All right, so all of that was just into creating your house. You and your group are going to be doing this as a cooperative thing and building on it. But here's just kind of a basic idea of how to build a house. Now we're going to go ahead and go into building your character. So one of the first things we're going to do is go ahead and build a character that does follow a lot of the archetypes and a lot of the assistants. Now, there's 2 ways to create a character. You've got plan creation, which is what we'll be doing in this video, and then also with my group, where you create everything up front. Excuse me. Yeah, it allows you to build a character how you want them to be played from the offset. The other method is creation and play, which I think is a very intriguing thing. But I think you'll want to do that more once you get used to it, even though they say this might be better for new people to the system. So we're going to go ahead and do a planned creation. Now, one of these things that you're going to find in this book is they like to bounce around a lot. They're going to give you a lot of preloaded stuff up front that might get kind of confusing because they're telling you all about this stuff and then not even how to create the characters. Like, they go straight into what are your traits, your skills, your focuses, what do they all do, what do they all mean, before you really even have an idea of how to build your character. I think they do that just to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking into, to kind of form that character. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and skip on over to the character creation summary concept. So for this one, we are going to make a mentat. You know, I've always liked the mentats, the mentat chant. I'm not going to say anything because of copyright, but you know what I mean. So when you're looking at doing one of these kind of filled out character templates, you're going to have some limitations already. Normally you get 3 traits, but one of them for like the mentat is we have to be a mentat. That's one of his traits. Suggested archetypes: analyst, empath, envoy, herald. Oh yeah, let's go with herald. Sorry, I kind of did some of this as a pre-research. So yeah, let's go ahead and do a herald for this mentat. And so he is a mentat herald. And then mandatory talents. Now, if you have the book, there are some errata. Like for this one, foreknowledge is actually calculated. Let's skip over to the talents. Calculated. Rules, traits, threat, determination, conflict. Come on, give me my talents. Calculated prediction. So instead of 4 in the book, the foreknowledge, it's actually calculated prediction. So you get to pick one of those. There's a couple other you can pick from. So already, wow, I really cannot type. Already you can kind of see they're driving what you've got to kind of follow when you're building one of these. Which is great, because if you wanted to be a mentat or a Bene Gesserit or a Fremen, it at least helps you go through that. So then we go ahead and select our archetype. So we already know he wants to be a herald. So that would be under the disciples archetype as herald. So trait herald. And primary skill is going to be discipline. So we're going to put an X here. Secondary skill is communicate. Put a 2 there. Focuses are command and composure. And then they'll fit in here for those focuses. So now that we know our archetypes, so skills are how you're going to be interacting with the world. Obviously, how good are you at battling? How's your communication, your discipline, your move, your understanding? So your primary skill will start off as a 6. So discipline was our primary. Communicate is our 5. Did I have that wrong? Let me double check. Discipline and communicate. Okay, yep. All right, so we're good. So then everything else comes off as a 4. Now you get 5 points that you can add to this. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is bumping my communicate up to a 7, because obviously I'm a herald. I want to talk more. And I don't like everything being a 4. If I remember correctly, 4 is just run-of-the-mill Joe. I'm a mentat, damn it. I'm going to be good at everything. So focuses. These are kind of representing where you're really pinned down in. If you're used to D&D, think of them as like your trained skills. This is your bread and butter. This is what your character does. So in the archetype, you're kind of already focused. You get 2. So you got command is part of discipline, and so is composure. So now that we've got those 2 there, we definitely want something in communicate. And you've got a whole list of these bad boys. All the way back. If you're following along in the book, if you go to... they start in page 103. You've got all these kind of focuses. So for communicate, we want to say that this guy... Now, because of how open this kind of style is, you're not stuck with what's in the book. You can kind of think of something that would follow in like communication, and they don't have it listed there. Talk with your group, talk with your game master, and you can pin something down. And then understand, because he's a mentat, we're going to go ahead and put data. Let me see where it is. Data analysis. And I totally slaughtered that. No, I didn't. Holy crap. All right, so these are our focuses. So when we're doing something in the world, well, obviously we're going to see how good our communicate skill is. And then if it's a focus, like we're trying to persuade someone, we'll get to adjust the dice rolls because of that. All right, so now that we've got our 4 focuses, we can delete this. We now move on to talent. Now these are a lot like D&D talents. They're abilities that you're going to be on to do stuff even better. Let's see. So we're already stuck with character prediction because we're a mentat. Then we're going to go ahead and start taking a look at the talents, which if you're following along in the book are on page They start on 27. So, yeah. You can kind of look through things. Obviously, you're going to have stuff that only Bene Gesserits can do, like Hyper Navigator, a Spacing Guild talent. So I really kind of want to focus everything I can to do Mentat stuff or Mentat-like stuff. So one of the ones I liked was Rigorous Control. There we go. So what that allows you to do is whenever you're attempting to extend a task where the requirement is based off of one of your skills at the cost of 1 momentum, you may use your discipline for that requirement instead of the skill normally used. The requirement would normally be based on your discipline. Add 1 to the final requirement. So you're always kind of in control and you're able to use that. Then the other one I wanted to do was Mentat Discipline. Always having perfect recall while making an understand test that applies to recalling data. One of the d20s in your pool may be considered to have rolled a 1 instead of rolling. So that's a big thing in this, in that when you're trying to do something in this game, it's not about going over like in D&D. Say the DC, the difficulty is like a 13, and your skill plus your dice roll has to go over it. It's actually the inverse in this one. You want to be able to roll below your skill. So having a automatic 1 is great. It's basically, it translates over to automatically getting a natural 20. So there are our 3 traits, or 3 talents. Then you go into your drives. You know, this is really where the meat and potato of your character is. What is driving your character? Duty, faith, justice, power. So what you do is you start with, let's see. You start with order. Oh, sorry. Wow. All right. So what's most important for our character? So one of the things when you go back to an envoy, a herald, your drives are based off of your faith, number 1. Herald will often have faith in a greater plan or purpose in their house, and duty is often a common drive for such people important. So these are our big ones. And depending on what type of character you're building, you'll decide which of the 2 will be your upper one. So for mine, faith in the house, this is what I'm here for. This is what this guy is built on. Duty gets a 7. You know, he's really not into the whole justice thing. He's been in politics. He's a mentat. Your house is politics. And we all know justice isn't a big, yeah. Power, we're going to say he's after faith and duty. Anybody in an envoy position, he's not as twisted as Piter DeVries, but he wants power. Truth, that's kind of up there with justice. So that'll be our 5. So our big ones are duty and faith. We're looking for power. And then truth and justice, they kind of just go to the wayside with this guy. So now we start looking at drive statements. Now they've got some great drive statements for examples. When you look at starting on page 105, and I like what they say in the book. You know, you get 3 drive statements. Every one of these that's above a 6 gets a statement. So obviously 7, 8, 6. You'll want to pick one that's good for you to help build your momentum. You'll want to pick one that's not great for you. And then that's So you gain more determination. So down here, determination, because you're running into a statement that, yeah, it's, yeah, because it's more problem for you. It's more problematic. You might run into a really religious house, and your faith, I mean, not with this guy, his faith is pretty high, but even then, you can have like this inverse style of it to where, let's see, like the one, like this one, this was a statement that they put in there. God has forgotten us. Let me see my notes. Let's go ahead and jump back here. Faith. God has forgotten us, for we are not worthy. Wow. So that's his faith statement. Is he does believe that there is a God out there, but God's forgotten us. I mean, look at the state of the universe. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. You got sandworms eating people. God has forgotten us. And it's because we're not worthy of him. And so that's his statement about his faith. There is faith in that, yeah, no, there is a higher being. He just doesn't care about us. Our duty statement, he serves at the pleasure of the house. And I like the wording of this because it shows, you see it a lot in the political TV stuff. You know, I serve at the pleasure of the president. At any point in time, if you don't like me, you can kick me out. But it's also a statement of trust. You know, I'm here still because they don't want to get rid of me. They could get rid of me at any time. So I like that statement. I serve at the pleasure of the house. You know, I've dedicated myself to the house. In fact, it kind of goes into that old Japanese thing, you know, if you don't like me, you think I failed, tell me and I will take my life. You know, I serve the house. And then for power, he is in it for some power, but, you know, it's also a grain of salt with him. So I chose the statement, all power, let me see. All power invites challenges. So, yeah, I want more power, but I also know that the more power, the more problems. Then we go into our... So we've got our drives. We know what this character is. He's a Mentat Herald. He's just been brought into the house. He's great at communication, discipline, data analysis, as a Mentat would be. As towards why he's playing, you know, what is his? He serves the house. He's been brought on. He is devoted to the house. He's a little bit cynical in the faith area. And he wants power, but he has a Mentat. He knows that power draws attention. So he's calculating how to get more power. So after drives, we then take a look at some assets. Now, assets, they've got a really good list inside the book. You'll want to kind of go through them as you develop a house. I mean, you can really get into big assets that the house has, like ships, tanks, other stuff. But for this part, you'll want to kind of keep it simple as towards stuff that your character would have with them. You need to have 2 tangible and 1... Or you get 3 assets. 1 has to be tangible. The other are intangible. So a good example they have in here is blackmail. You have blackmail on someone. And then as the story develops, you can say, oh yeah, hey, Game Master, I have blackmail. So what blackmail do I have on this? Can I use that blackmail here? So as I kind of researched these guys beforehand to making this video, the assets that we decided to give this guy is a dampener, very similar to what our house is known for, but this is even better quality. because it comes from the planet of Ixu. You know, the almost computers that caused the Bihat Jihad, or yeah, I probably slaughtered that, but as a Dune fans will know, big bad things. So he's got a dampener because obviously as a herald, he's going to be able to walk around, have secret conversations, stuff like that. He's been given a poison snooper. That's just basic quality. It won't catch any of the really advanced poisons, but it is a poison snooper, so that when he's out being a herald, he can kind of scan, make sure the food and drink is safe for him to drink. And then for his intangible, he has some stolen files. So as your game master progresses, as you guys progress in your story, he has some files that were taken from another house that might be able to kind of sway things for him. Then you can go into, you get, as you're finishing up your character, you get to pick an additional trait, and they suggest it be something that kind of defines what your character is. I mean, obviously we're a Mentat Herald, but you know, what else is there to this Mentat Herald? And we're going to go ahead and say he's a little arrogant. If I can spell correctly, we'll call that good because it's late at night. So yeah, he's a Mentat Herald, but he kind of has that, looks his nose down. Maybe before he became a Mentat, he was of noble lineage. Kind of what they were training a certain boy Duke. And we'll avoid any, yeah. And so then you'll go into like names, the house he belongs to, what faction, if anything, he's a Mentat. So that can go there instead of the role. And so yeah, and what was our house called? House Grimoire. So another thing too is when you're looking at your assets, you can even create small NPCs as an asset. Maybe he brought an assistant to help him out in his heralding things. It's really cool. You guys can spend a lot of time with your game master developing all kinds of fun stuff with that. So this is how you would build a character that is based off of the archetype plus kind of that pre-built. To go ahead and bring in another character, let's go ahead and build one real quick. All right, so to kind of speed things along, like I said, I kind of ran through and pre-built some of this stuff. We're going to go ahead and look at what it's going to take to build kind of just a normal run-of-the-house guy. Nothing special, no special training like the Bene Gesserit or anything else like that. This guy is here to serve the house. So, the pre-built guy, Balkis, Laust, House Grimgar, and I'll kind of go through how I created him. Grimoire. He is a guard leader. So not the head of the guard, but, you know, kind of a sergeant level. And protector is the little archetype he falls under. And then his faction is House Guard. So, some personality traits, obviously, well, he's a protector. Not protector, protector, Ed, come on. And then towards focuses, when you're dealing with the protector, the two big things were battle and discipline, as you would expect. So discipline being higher, that one started off as a 6, battle started off as a 5, and these became 4s. And then with those 5 points, we just put 1 up on everything. So battle became a 6, discipline became a 7, communicate becomes a 5, Move becomes a 5, and understand becomes a 5. So I know I didn't say this earlier, and I probably should have. So these things are how well trained are you. 4 means you haven't been trained at all, completely new to you. 5 means you've had some rudimentary training, and then from 6, 7, 8, you're better and better and better at it. So some focus statements for these skills is, well, it came with part of being a protector. You had resolve and self-control, as you'd kind of expect from a sergeant, you know. Self-control, resolve, got to lead some men. For battle, he is a shield fighter. You know, he's been trained on how to use the fast blade, then the slow blade, and how to actually take out and combat other people with shields. And then for communication, because he's kind of a sergeant, you can't have a sergeant without some intimidation. So there we go. So those are his 4 focuses. So, you know, let's say we are in a situation where the herald not put his foot in his mouth, and now you've got to try and get him out of that situation. You've got some self-control to say, okay, things just lit off with the game master. I'm going to try and protect the herald and guide him out of the room. And so you would say, okay, self-control. I'm not, you know, I'm not wavering because the things are going crazy. Or maybe that would be resolved. Another thing is, let's say the envoy is having a hard time with somebody, and you kind of just stand there and grunt and groan. Well, you know, intimidation, communicate, you know, that's how that would play out. The first talent he got as part of being a protector is bolster. Yeah. And then some other talents that I went through. He's dedicated, so he's got some dedication. And then improvise weapons. Because what's a good house guard and a sergeant without being able to just pick up a stick and whack somebody with it? Okay, now his duties and drives. Obviously, of course, duty is going to be an 8 for a protector. It's his job to protect the house. That's what he signed up for. Justice, he's a 7. You know, duty in the house, but also sense of justice, sense of things being right in the world. He's not really out for the power. With the backstory I kind of built up on this guy. Truth, yes, you know, with the justice and truth. But again, truth, yeah, there's multiple things about truth, and we'll kind of see as we go. And then he really just doesn't have any faith. And as I kind of explain this kind of character, you'll see what I mean. So for his duty statement is, I know my responsibilities. He knows what he's there for. He knows his job. Responsibilities. So that will be his statement when it's, you know, why are you doing this? This is why. Justice. So life isn't fair. He's one of those guys that goes, when somebody complains, wow, I really can't type. When somebody complains, oh, well, that's not fair, all this other stuff, he's that kind of guy that goes, what are you using as your basis of comparison? You know, compared to what? Are you that homeless person on the street that just died from starvation? No, so life isn't fair. And then he's also cynical in that the truth is the first casualty of war. So this guy, I've kind of given him 2 kind of negatives and a positive, and that's just kind of the gritty person he is. For assets, he has been given a shield belt and a blade that are both quality 1. And normally you wouldn't give, you know, obviously somebody in the house guard a shield blade, belt, and a blade. They'd be able to get something from the armory and stuff like that. But for this situation, These specific shield and blade combination have decoration on them. They were a present from the Lord for previous duty. You know, he was there, he saved the Lord, or he saved somebody important. There was, you know, this was a reward for him. So it's a little bit higher of a quality shield, belt, and blade. It's got a little bit of bling on it. People will notice it. And then as an intangible, he's got an ex-agent friend of his, either from the Spicing Guild or maybe even a Bene Gesserit agent, something like that. Somebody he's known in the past that he can tap on to help out with. So for this character, if you've made it all the way to the end, I didn't do much as towards the Mentat, but for him, I did a little bit more in depth into the character. He is somebody who lost his siblings from a raid from an opposing house that attacked this house when he was much younger. And so this is where he kind of developed that life isn't fair. You know, watching his brothers and sisters die in front of him while the other house attacked. And so he was saved by a house guard. So now he wanted to be a house guard. But it gives him some, you know, it gives him that drive. This is why I want to be here. You know, life's not fair. I lost my brother and sister. Nothing could have been done. Yeah. So that's why life isn't fair for this guy. As he got into it, he devoted himself to it. I know my responsibilities. I want to be the best house guard there is. And that goes into his ambition. He wants to be kind of that captain of the guard. What was it? For the house. He's an ambitious little dude because he wants to be... Oh, why am I looking at my papers when I've got this? He wants to be the War Master. He wants to be the guy in charge of all of the house. That's where he wants to be. So yeah, it's a little bit of power. It's not kind of what he wants to go to, but I look at it more as a duty. He wants to prove that he is the best and he can serve the house the most. And then finally, where he became cynical with the truth is he found out as he got further inside the house that the raid that killed his brother and sister was in response to something else this house did. And so when he was younger, you know, he was always under the impression, how could they attack us? Our house is so great and everything else. And then come to find out that this was a retaliatory action. So the truth is the first casualty of war. He never takes anything at face value. He always knows that the other foot's going to drop. So when he goes into situations, he's going to kind of have that feel about it. You know, when the envoy is told something from an opposing party, he's going to tell the envoy, hey, listen, they're not always going to bring the first thing to you. You need to dig deeper. And those kind of things are really important for your character in this system, because a lot of what your dice rolling is going to be is not, can you do a thing? Why am I doing a thing? And if you can prove that the reason why I'm telling the envoy not to trust this is because I have seen that truth is the first casualty of war, we're never going to get the truth up front, you're going to be able to drop the difficulty down on what the dice, how many successes you need with that kind of drive. So yeah, lots of long-winded, really tied it up kind of near the end, so I hope you guys all watch to the end. Please leave a comment on anything I might have made a mistake on, anything you have questions on, and I can do more of this stuff and a little bit deeper if we need. And then also look forward to seeing Sword and Fortress doing some Dune RPG stuff. So thank you. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, all the good YouTube stuff. And we'll see you as we play more games. Have a good night.